Hey, not much. I'm much happier this week. So, yeah, let's just jump into it because we're already live. So, um, start out. I thought it would be fun to talk about to compare this year's week 3 to last year's week 3 because they felt very similar coming into it. Definitely, this felt like a bit of a trap game coming in. Um, I don't know. I thought this could have gone very quickly south with the if the game starts with like a Kirk Cousins turnover or any sort of 3 and out and then give up a long touchdown drive. This could have been a very different game, but we avoided the trap game. Buffalo, yeah. Like they were favored by over 2 scores, like over 2 touchdowns, I think, or close to it. Yeah, I think it definitely like this game felt very similar to how Atlanta felt in Week 1. And it was kind of tough because coming off of a loss in Green Bay, a game where you really probably should have won, um, there's every possibility. And we've seen Zimmer teams come out and lay eggs before, especially in moments where we need a victory. Thinking even back to when they were playing at TCF and they had or the first year of US Bank, I think they had Indianapolis at home, favored by a good amount. It was essentially win that game and you've got a chance at a wild card spot, and they something like 20 unanswered points out of the gate by the Colts, and like just terrible, just terrible game. But we really saw like we really saw it come together today, and to start off, I think Kirk Cousins played well enough today. Again, like it's hard to say he ever plays a good game because he did play a good game, but there's always going to be like because of the expectation, it'll always be well he played well enough. Unless he puts up like 4 touchdowns and 300 yards, it'll always be well he played well enough. Yeah, and I think he definitely looked like he could have. Like there was a possibility that he came out with a little bit of pressure on himself, but I think they said it on the broadcast too. As soon as he delivered that touchdown to Thielen, it was all pretty much off, and he realized that they were kind of better than team, and it makes it tough because when you play those better opponents, it's no longer on your quarterback to win the game, the guy that you want to be winning the game for you. It's a matter of can you hear mouse click but no voice? Okay. I don't know whose mouse click he's talking about. Um, it's a matter of like, uh, you know, at that point, if your quarterback can't win the game, you have to rely on your running backs and your offensive line, and we haven't had that in the past. Although there's a chance this year that we could do it with Dalvin Cook, who had another excellent game. Yeah, I think it was. It was kind of telling. Uh, not only was he hitting the line hard and making excellent cuts, he never goes down, which is I think like new this year. Not only does he get the blocks in front of him, which you said Dennison's scheme has been just great for him, but especially on that one touchdown where it was a 1 yard run, he ran all the way out to the outside, and then he was fighting at the goal line and reached across. But like I feel like Dalvin Cook a year or two ago doesn't do that. Doesn't quite make that happen. Like I don't know. I feel like he's had so much more fight this year. And I wonder if it's just because people doubted him coming into the season. With the you can't stay healthy, whatever. Like he just seems like he's angry running every single play. Yeah, I thought there was a lot of times where he would kind of be in open space, but there would be 3 or 4 guys in front of him, and you'd be like, okay, 5 yard gain, and then all of a sudden he makes a guy miss and shakes one, and it's like, okay, 15 yard gain, okay, especially, yeah, yeah, I think it's been excellent as far as it's kind of interesting to see, like you say about the offensive line pushing. There's been so many times in the last couple of years where you watch the offensive line and it's an end of a run or end of a play, and they're just kind of standing there with their hands on their hips, so they're watching it and they're like kind of reaching down. Like there was one play this game where Riley Reef ended up facing the ball on a run, but that would happen like 10 times every single game in the last couple of years, where guys would end up like just watching the run happen because they let their guy beat them, and they let something would happen. So it's excellent to see not only the offensive line getting their assignments, but finishing the play and then not having to turn around to find where the ball was because they know it's at least at the same level as them. So um, excellent job by both Cook and the line. We saw the first touchdown from Alexander Madison, who is a bona fide RB2. I think showed that he is an NFL level guy today. Got his first touchdown on a play that a lot of guys probably would have just gone down at the 2 or 3, but he decided to like jump into the end zone. And I was scared when he was coming down because he was coming down on kind of a straight leg. But luckily, it seemed to absorb it, and he finished the game. So, but that was an amazing run from Madison, a guy who a lot of Vikings fans didn't want during the draft. Yeah, I think it's I don't know, like the idea of a spellback is like usually you want a different style of guy, and usually the second guy is the guy who catches passes and is shifty and whatever. But it's interesting that for the Vikings it's kind of different where Cook is the guy who could catch a pass, and Madison can catch a pass too. But Cook is the guy who can really make people miss, and then Madison is the one who bruises through them and could. Honestly, I think Madison could run the ball 20 times a game and be fine. He wouldn't get a lot of yards, but he could do that. We're having some sort of audio issue now. Hold on. Everybody stop it. Pause everything. Well, I can hear you just fine. Oh, that's weird. That's not going to... Try talking now.
Testing. Can you hear me?
Maybe.
How about now?
Okay, I don't know why that... I had this set up exactly the same way we did it last time, but you weren't coming through on the live stream. All right. Fun technology things. We'll get it ironed out eventually. It's only week 3.
We got plenty of time.
Plenty of time. All right, going back to it, Mike Boone also had a huge run towards the end of the game. Garbage time run, but still like encouraging to see an RB3. Well, it should be RB3. Really, Amir Abdullah and him are kind of splitting, it seems, and Amir Abdullah's getting more looks. And Amir Abdullah is actually one I wanted to talk about because I thought he did a great job, obviously, on special teams with that one where he kind of missed the guy right away, then came back and lit him up. But I thought there was a particular play call that gave me PTSD flashbacks to John DeFilippo last year, where Cousins went to throw a screen behind the line of scrimmage and almost got it picked off. It's just, I don't know what the obsession is with throwing these little, like, very quick hitter passes on 3rd and short, but I don't like them, first of all. I would rather see you roll Cousins out or do some sort of play action. I don't like the quick slants on those either, but I can understand them a little more because you at least have a shot because you have 2 of the best route runners in the NFL. Although it seems like it's a 50-50 chance whether Cousins is going to get it batted down. And I also don't like that you're not using Amir Abdullah the whole game, and then you bring him in for a screen pass, which is pretty obvious that you're going to do it. Like, you haven't set him up at all. And they know Amir Abdullah is not a new guy. They know that he's a pass catching back. So I don't know why you decide to bring him in there and throw that screen pass in that situation.
Yeah, like you said, it seems a little obvious to the defense that if the ball does go to him, that's what's going to happen. So I was honestly a little surprised that they decided to keep Abdullah on the final 53, but he is a very versatile player, and I'm starting to be pretty happy with that decision. Hell of a play on special teams making that tackle on that punt, and he's got good hands. He's a shifty running back, but offensively, can you put Mike Boone in that same situation, and can he do the same thing without the defense knowing exactly what you're going to do? Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just it was an interesting and what I thought bad call. But going to actually some great calls, they used Irv Smith. They used Irv Smith and they used him correctly.
Finally.
They got him up the field one on one against some people. That's really he looked great. He looked like he is ready to be the tight end 2 for the foreseeable future and maybe push Kyle Rudolph for some snaps. Not that Rudolph had a bad game today. He had one that got very close to a touchdown, and he drew a pass interference on a deep ball that he had a shot at catching. But yeah, I thought Irv Smith looked just incredible today.
Yeah, and like you said on those plays to Rudolph, I mean, on that screen pass, if that's Irv Smith Jr., he's probably, walking into the end zone there. But it's great to have both of them. I was one of the few that was very excited to see the Vikings extend Rudolph. But I think going forward, having both him and Smith on the roster it's a threat. It's tough to cover all 4 receivers if you include Diggs, Thielen, Rudolph, Smith. And he's just now starting to show what he can do. And it's not only receiving. He's a good blocker, better than pretty much everybody thought he was going to be. And he is just electric after the catch. So it's going to be fun to watch him going forward. Hopefully he can. Hopefully they keep game planning like they did today and keep giving him the ball.
Yeah, I'd really love to see more of Irv Smith in every single possible way. One last note on the offense, till we get to the very end, maybe. One thing that kind of stood out as bad, along with some Cousins maybe miscues of like getting the ball batted down, and that one that he threw to Thielen that Thielen luckily adjusted to on third down and he caught, because Thielen somehow had just a ton of room, so Cousins was able to kind of miss him a little bit, but he still got the catch. Outside of those things from Cousins and a few other missed blocks, but you'll have those. Still too many penalties on the offense. We had a few big runs that also got called back. Like we already had a great game running. We still had a great game running, but we had a couple called back for holding, and one called back for, I think it was a screen pass that got called back for an illegal block by Chad Beebe. They called it on Adam Thielen, but it was actually Chad Beebe. I don't think concerning to the point where we would have lost the game, we would have lost the game if it was closer, but definitely some things to clean up still.
Yeah, I'll go back. I actually recorded that play, that penalty they called on Beebe. It was not at all a penalty. I don't know what they were looking at there, but you could say that about almost any play that's been called this season. But as far as the other penalties, I'm not too concerned. It's just because everybody's getting called for just bogus crap this year. It seems like it's a league-wide issue. And when you look at some of the replays that are on Twitter from other games too, it's like, are you kidding me? Like that guy, I can't remember what team it was. Maybe Miami, that got his helmet ripped off.
That was Philadelphia, yeah.
Was it Philly? And no penalty there. It's like, I don't know what needs to happen, but as far as the Vikings in particular, I'm not too concerned. Like you said, it's week 3 too. It's they got plenty of time to clean that up, and I don't know. I can't think of anything blatantly obvious that really concerns me there.
Yeah, I thought I thought today was definitely like a good. And we'll get to the defense here, but I thought today was a good game for fans to just like relax. Relax on the hot takes and relax on the Kyle Sloter should have started for this team, because I saw that multiple times. Um, it was a good game to just say, hey, we're still a very good football team, and we can still beat up on the teams we need to beat up on. Sure, we lost to Green Bay in Green Bay by 5 points that were taken off the board, at least most of them by penalties. Like, but you just need to pump the brakes a second. We got time. Although this game is, I think, huge for the overall season, because I was looking at the schedule earlier and we talked about it a bit, because we go at Chicago, at New York. We don't have our bye until week 12, and we've got a bit of a grueling stretch after the bye week. So we kind of have to, not have to, but you'd like to rattle off some wins here and maybe surprise if like pull out one in Chicago, which I think most people are going to pick against the Vikings, just because they don't generally play well in Chicago. Um, you want to rattle off hopefully 5 out of 7, or you know 4 out of 5 at least, um, before you have to play really a tough second half. I think we'd like to see them 2 or 3 games over 500 before week 8. Um, he's like, which should be doable, but Uh, anyways, on to the better. Well, not the better. I guess the another great aspect of the game was this was a really good defensive game for the Vikings. And I know Oakland is not it is not an incredible team like we said, but we came out and we kind of imposed the will, and we showed that we are still a top defense in the NFL. At least for the most part. On their one drive where they scored, I thought we played soft after that one screen pass that we gave up like 30 yards on, which is a tough. It's kind of tough. But then as soon as that happens, Zimmer kind of did his thing where he plays prevent, and he's willing to give up 5 to 6 like yards on the initial catch, which turns into 9 to 12 on the run after catch. Um, and it just feels like when we play those soft zones, it just feels like we get ourselves into trouble, and we give them way too much. I don't know how you feel about that.
Oh yeah, I'm totally against it 100% of the time. It drives me crazy. I know you're preventing the deep plays, and uh, I have nothing wrong with preventing the deep plays, but giving up that big of chunk yardage is just it drives me crazy. But I'm trying to think of when did they do that in the game?
When did they switch to the? What do you mean? When did we
Yeah,
get
when did
beat?
they? Yeah, when did they go to the prevent?
It was right after the big like 30-yard screen to Waller. It was in the second quarter. Um, and it was kind of before. I think it was the third to last drive of the half, or fourth to last. It was the one we gave up the touchdown on for the flea flicker, because we went into prevent, gave up a bunch of like short passes, and then they ran a flea flicker to score on us. Which
Oh, interesting.
I would just like to point out that in the pregame, they were talking of Oakland and saying Oakland now doesn't need to use trickery to score on people. And then the only like touchdown they scored that wasn't garbage time was on a
Was
flea flicker. So
no that's a good catch. I didn't even notice. I guess at that point that they were in the prevent, but it makes sense now because they were giving up the big chunks, and Eric Wilson obviously getting burned on that flea flicker. It was, I mean, it's a tough play for any linebacker, especially if you're not used to playing a whole lot. But that's why Anthony Barr is so much more valuable than people really give him credit for, I think.
yeah, I think, and I don't know that Anthony Barr makes that play either, just because like a flea flicker is almost impossible to stop as like a linebacker, especially if you're manned up and you're the only guy covering someone crossing the field and running the wheel route. That's like that's you got to hope that your safety somehow reads it correctly, like reads it perfectly, and essentially guesses right, because Smith also had to cover Williams, I think is his name, running into the middle of the
Hmm.
field. So like that's a really tough play to stop unless you're up in probably cover three is what you probably need to even get a chance at stopping that.
And Smith bit on that play action pretty bad too. I noticed that, but I have no doubt that Anthony Barr would have picked off that pass.
All right,
No, I'm
all
kidding. I'm
right,
kidding. I'm kidding.
making
But
making a call, I guess.
I'm.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna move on to the next thing, but you if you got still talk about.
No, I was just gonna say it's tough to say at this point, but just very impressed with Wilson's game. Honestly, I mean that was the one bad play, pretty much all game for him. So really, he had 2 sacks today. He looked really fast, really strong. So happy to see that when somebody like Anthony Barr goes down, that the defense really doesn't lose a whole lot besides the touchdown.
Yeah, and on a play that like nobody makes that play. Yeah, I thought the defense looked great, especially when they were playing hard, playing fast. Defensive lineman Daniil Hunter was just beating Trent Brown like a rented mule. Like
Oh yeah.
I, Trent Brown's supposed to be is a very good like pass blocking tackle, and he just couldn't stop Daniil Hunter. So
No, he was. I don't know if he was on the injury report. Trent Brown, that is. I can't remember. But yeah,
he,
Daniil Hunter. He was just
yeah,
working him. He shoved him right back into Carr's face on that one play where Carr had to like jump and throw it over him. So yeah, I mean, anybody stopping Daniil Hunter 1-on-1, it's going to be a challenge. But Trent Brown has got experience and good experience at that. He's a good player. He met his match today.
yeah, I think Trent Brown did go out of the game for a few plays with like a knee injury or something, and then his replacement came in, and I believe also like had to come out of the game for some sort of ding. So yeah, it was I don't know, it was just a great day by the defensive line. Everson got a sack. Daniil got back there. The one thing I guess you would have liked to see more of is maybe the D tackles doing more, because other than the fourth down where they turned him over on downs at like 4th and 1, I don't think they really shined that much. But also they didn't get gashed. Like you didn't. It's one of those things where yeah, you'd like to see more from them, but you didn't see like you never noticed them because they weren't getting like beat and. Um, the Oakland running back Jacobson or whatever his name, Josh
Yep.
Jacobs. There we go. He is a very good runner, and he could have had a very similar game to not quite as good maybe, but a very similar game to Dalvin Cook if he gets into the second level and is kind of terrorizing Ben Gideon and Eric Wilson and not as much Eric Kendricks because I think Kendricks is the best linebacker on the Vikings, like as far as tackling. Um, but he didn't like the defensive tackles did their job and held their own. I guess the only thing I would like to see is a little more of a push occasionally on like passing situations. But really, what can you complain about? You got to the quarterback a bunch of times. Like I don't know. I want to see more and I want to try to find the negatives, but like also it's hard when you played as good of a game as the Vikings did.
Yeah, it's especially hard to come up with negatives too when you like beat the crap out of the Raiders. But I know what you mean. They don't really show up and like make huge plays on film. But Joseph is going to be a sound, fundamental guy, and he's always been like that. But he'll occasionally rush the quarterback and make a big play there. And I think kind of the same thing with Stefan too. They're just sound, fundamental players that aren't going to really show up on tape a whole lot, but they will. Their play will allow guys like Griffin and Hunter and the linebackers to show up, and that's exactly what happened today.
Yeah, we have a comment here from Tang Yang. All Kirk has to do is not turn the ball over and we win. We should have beaten the Packers last week. Yes, we should have beaten the
Yeah, it's
Packers
true.
last week. That was it was a tough one, and you think about it, if he doesn't have 3 turnovers in that game, we probably win easily. because we can complain about the officiating all we want, but really, Kirk Cousins did take 3 drives away, and one of them especially was would have probably been a touchdown drive. Um, and that's the one that really sealed the game. But yes, definitely, Kirk Cousins. All he has to do is take care. Most of the time, all he has to do is take care of the ball, hit the play action plays when he needs to, um, and let Dalvin Cook and Alexander Madison kind of play the game they play.
Yeah, I love it personally. I totally agree with the comment. And I know Courtney Cronin had that article that came out this week too that said, is Kirk Cousins an $84 million game manager? And at this point, I think he is. I don't think you really want to put the game in his hands unless you really have to, because we've seen what happens in big situations. And with having the best, or I shouldn't say maybe the best, but having the NFL's leading rusher with some really good pieces behind him and having depth with Abdullah back there, I mean, keep pounding the rock, man. There's no reason not to if you're being successful on the ground. And then, if you got a third and short, third and middle, or third and long, I mean, you got your receivers there. So there's really no need to really put the game in Kirk's hands all the time. I mean, lean on that running game heavy because it's working.
Yeah, I think it's. I don't know that Kirk's an $84 million game manager, as much because game manager is such a. It's like such a dirty term to use to describe a quarterback, because a lot of people called Teddy Bridgewater a game manager. Well, I will always defend that Teddy Bridgewater was a game winner. He didn't, put up ridiculous stats, and he wasn't going to come back and win games because he wasn't a superstar. But when you gave him the chances to win, you gave him the opportunity to get down the field. Um, he put you in positions to win games. Um, yes, Kirk so far is not a game winner. He is a game manager, but I think he has the opportunity to be a game winner in this particular system, which also makes him a system quarterback, which is another dirty term to call a quarterback.
It's I mean, there's a lot of dirty terms thrown around or after the Packers game last week, and maybe rightfully so, maybe not, but a lot of people turned on Kirk Cousins after the game last week, and I don't know if you can describe him how you want, but as long as he's not turning the ball over, I think the Vikings are in good shape. It's as simple as that, really.
All right, gotta help my wife with something for a second.
Okay. I'll just add that I want to I'm just talking to the fans here since he's busy. Wow, that's loud. But defensive tackle-wise, I do think that Joseph and Stefan, they do need to kind of shore up the running game. That's one area. I'm just talking to myself and to the watchers here, to the viewers, but I'm just wanted to say that Joseph and Stefan, the one area of concern I had going into the game was stopping the run, and that's simply based off how many yards the Vikings have allowed per game. So as long as Joseph and Stefan are sound in stopping the run, I'm just fine with them.
Yep. Yeah, I thought definitely that was the biggest concern, and I think they talked about it in the pregame too. Was Josh Jacobs is like the Raiders' offense for the most part. So that was really good to see them hold him to not that many yards. Well, not that many big yards at least. Okay, back to the show notes. Sorry about that. We're still moving in here, right. So it's almost impossible to get a stroller in. So we had to move a bunch of stuff. Anyways,
there's no shame in asking for help moving. If you need me to come and help you, I will.
Well, we already did the moving. It's the unpacking that
it's organizing.
It's still 50% done. But yeah, one of the things that I thought was interesting, and is kind of part of my note here, is Dan Bailey was perfect today. 2 for 2 on field goals, 4 for 4 on extra points. Just took care of business as usual. Um, and Daniel Carlson had a 51-yard doink off the right upright. Um, I thought it was
God,
interesting.
that was great.
I know he essentially lost the game last year in Green Bay, but Daniel Carlson is really hated in Minnesota to the level of Blair Walsh almost.
I was surprised that he got booed that hard. Honestly, I thought I was kind of against the whole release to begin with. So I thought the Vikings were a little too quick to pull the trigger there. But maybe today was a turning point and things will kind of turn in our favor. Just that's wishful thinking, but it was cool to see that for one game that let him doink one for once and let our guy make all of them. So it was cool to see. I love that moment personally.
Yeah, it was really you hate to see anybody get booed, but it's really fun. It was really fun.
He's a
Um,
kicker.
yeah, he's a kicker. He's not really a person, anyways. Uh, I do want to ask: are you concerned at all about garbage time yards and scores? Um, there was pretty obvious. It's pretty obvious to me that as much as they were talking about like, oh, Zimmer doesn't want to see them give up points here or whatever at the end of the game, it's pretty obvious to me that Zimmer doesn't try to play tough when he knows that the victory's kind of sealed up. He plays in base and he just lets people throw it down the middle of the field. Not for long games. He does that thing where he plays it soft, which I don't think is that there's nothing wrong with it. It's never cost us a game when we're already up by 3 or more scores, is what I'll say. Playing soft has definitely cost us games when it's way closer. But like at the end of games when he's just trying to get people some time, um, we saw Nate Metters get beat on a deep slant for a touchdown, where Metters just stopped on the play. That was confusing. But we saw a lot of people get time. It just wasn't in a situation where they really tried to play on defense, I thought.
Yeah, I noticed that too, and I don't know if you can necessarily put that on the coaches. It almost seems like a player thing with me, and maybe it is on the coaches for not really giving them guidance in that type of situation. But if you're in there, you got to be playing your ass off. I mean, if you're not, why are you there? So it's maybe just a lack of experience, and you got to take advantage of those opportunities when you get them, because who knows how many you'll get if ever. So I put it more on the players personally. I don't know if that's the right call, but that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, it just to me it feels like they don't. I don't know. They aren't put in the situation to make plays. Although Metters definitely had a chance at making a play there, and he just didn't try to, which was weird, especially from a guy who like I thought played really well in the preseason and has a
Yeah,
chance to like at least stick on the roster. Um,
I'm. I just want to add too. I'm interested to see if he'll stick on the roster with Hughes coming back. I could maybe see them adding a receiver, especially now with BB going down, and adding at least one wide receiver, and maybe trying to move Metters back down to the practice squad. But we'll see.
yeah, and it'll be interesting to see, especially when not only not only Hughes is back to playing full strength, because I thought Hughes played really well today for his first game back. He had that one like holding call that he gave up the pass on anyway, like he gave up a completion on anyways. But other than that, he was right there on their first drive where Carr just threw it all out of bounds because Hughes was in the guy's hip pocket. He was in on a few other plays where he was, there, but he never got really like beat, which is kind of saying something since he is his first game back after 11 months. I'm just really happy to see Mike Hughes as part of it, but it'll be interesting to see once we get Mac back, and once we get Holden Hill back from his suspension, assuming Holden Hill actually plays, which I'm kind of questioning, especially the way he handled the preseason. Not that he was put in the best situation because he was in with a bunch of depth guys, but it seemed like Holden Hill didn't try at all in the preseason to me. Um, like there was a few, like he's good enough where he could be essentially a second stringer for the most part. on even this team. But in the preseason, he was playing against third and fourth string guys, and he just didn't make any plays. It looked like he wasn't trying because he knew he wasn't going to be in the first 8 weeks of the season. Then again, that's just me watching on the TV. Maybe he's in practice, putting it all his heart into it. But it'll be interesting to see once Mac is back and once Hill is back, what happens with that depth, because we'll essentially be back at full strength. And you think about it, Hill's suspended for what, 6 games, 8 games, 8 games.
Yeah, 8 games. Yep.
So we're almost halfway through the Holton Hill suspension, and we'll have Mac back. I think unless other injuries happen, which I hope they do not, um, I think there's a good chance that we've seen the weakest Vikings secondary of the year already last week against the Packers. Having to use Jaron Curse in the slot, especially against Adams, not having Mike Hughes back, not having Mac Alexander. I think we saw the weakest secondary we'll see of the year, barring any other major injuries, which, goodness, I hope doesn't happen. But yeah, I think we should see a very strong Viking secondary for the rest of the year, which is encouraging to me because I was worried about it, to be honest.
Yeah, honestly, I kind of got chills when you said that because that gets me very excited. And it's true, I think. I mean, not having Hughes, getting him back is a huge, huge step. He's just going to probably get more and more comfortable as the season goes along. And he's got the versatility to play both outside and in the nickel, wherever you need him to. And like Mike Zimmer said, you have the opportunity to play more dime packages once Mackenzie Alexander is also back, which, according to Paul Allen, could possibly be next week, which would be huge. So I think you're right. I think that was easily the weakest the secondary will be all year, barring injury, and that's a really cool feeling.
Yeah,
really cool fact.
We still shut out the Packers for the last 3 quarters of the game.
Oh yeah.
One thing I'll point out, talking about the secondary and Nate Metters in his weird not doing anything. Chris Boyd, as much as he didn't make many splash plays on defense, I thought he had a solid time when he was in there. But his big play of the game was he saved the day on a muff punt. Chad Beebe muffed his first punt of the year, and Chris Boyd just kind of flew in there and saved the day on that one. I thought it was an excellent special teams play, and definitely I think something that coaches are going to look at and take note of because they love when guys make these kind of plays on special teams.
Oh, 100% agree. That kind of goes back to what I was talking about too, is just as far as players taking it upon themselves to make plays like that in big opportunities. So he's looked pretty good. I'm pretty happy with Boyd so far. I think he's getting some valuable experience, and I'm excited to see what he can keep doing and how he can grow under Zimmer in the future. But having a guy like that on special teams making big plays, that's huge. And was that was BB, right? That muffed that punt?
Yeah, that was BB who muffed that one.
And I even hate to suggest it, but I'm wondering now if they'll consider putting somebody else back there. I know that BB's hurt. I haven't heard the extent there, but I think they'll maybe look at somebody else to return punts, and hopefully not Mike Hughes right away, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think they might give a chance to to BC Johnson was returning them during the preseason, and like I've said before, if he just goes back there and fair catches every single punt, I'm fine with that.
I'm cool with that too.
Going on to the injuries and inactives for today. First of all, the inactives coming into the day. Anthony Barr didn't play today. We alluded to it. I didn't read up on it. Did we know what's wrong with Barr? This is just
groin
issue.
So I was honestly kind of relieved that they held him out. As stupid as that may sound, I think groins can be very troublesome. So I was just fine with them keeping Barr out of this game, especially so early in the season.
Yeah, I think it was a good decision, especially with Chicago coming up next week. That's really, I think, the biggest of the first 4 that we play. even bigger than the Packers at home. Even though the Packers are 3-0, I don't think they're as good as their record would indicate so far. 3 linemen were held inactive today: Udo, Samia, and Jones. And these were all just healthy scratches, I believe.
Yeah, as far as I know, yep.
We might see, with Klein being in concussion protocol, I assume we'll see Samia activated next week, or perhaps just Jones. One of those two will probably be active next week, I think, because Dakota Dozier will assumedly start if Klein has a concussion, because you have to be held out. I think you have to be held out at least 1 or 2 weeks with a concussion. Don't quote me on that, though. I think you do have to be out 1 week.
I think you're right on that, but yeah, I'm not quite sure.
Armin Watts and Jalen Holmes both healthy scratches as well, I'm pretty sure. And Mac
Mm-hmm.
Alexander, we know about that one. We kind of figured he would not play. The two that occurred during the game that we actually saw people come out on. We'll see what the injury report looks like during the week and who got small things and whatever. But Josh Klein, like we said, had a concussion, had to come out, went through the protocol. I don't know the result of that protocol, but he was held out for the rest of the game. So Elfline luckily was back out there because if we didn't have Elfline, it would have been Samia in there and Dakota Dozier. And I know people are high on Samia and they want to see him play, but I don't think you want to see Drew Samia and Dakota Dozier play at the same time. Not yet, anyways.
Not ideal.
Chad Beebe, like we alluded to before, has an ankle injury. Not sure what's happening there. I assume Olabisi Johnson will get a chance next week if they don't sign some sort of veteran to come in and all of a sudden swoop a spot. But I highly doubt that'll happen, just especially knowing this team and the fact that they're only carrying like 4 receivers at a time for some reason. But they haven't been hurt by it so far, so we'll see. But yeah, I think we escaped this game with, again, not many injuries that weren't already known about. Obviously, Josh Klein with a concussion, I think, is probably the biggest one right now. Klein has done an excellent job, I thought, so far this season. Certainly better than our guards last year. He's been the best guard that we've had so far because Elfline did a much better job today handling his business, but did not look good in the first week and was out last week, or at least part of last week. I don't remember. But Dakota Dozier is not a long-term option, so I think it'll be important to see Josh Klein get back in the lineup as soon as he can, within the protocol.
Yeah, I think to go along with what you said, I think both Josh Klein and Dakota Dozier, for that, have played both very well. So specifically Klein, who's been starting, he's been a very pleasant surprise, and Dakota Dozier obviously filling in for Elfline, and then Klein has done very well. So glad to see it. I think we talked about it last week too, or the week before, just having legit depth on the offensive line is just so nice to actually say and to actually have. It makes me feel a whole lot better to have 3 offensive linemen be healthy scratches. That's like unheard of for the Vikings. So I'm not too concerned about that going forward. And it's nice to have those versatile guys too, like Brett Jones, like Pat Elfline, that can play multiple positions, and Dozier too, for that matter.
Yeah, it was. We were 1 injury away from answering the question of can Irv Smith Jr. play guard. It's a good joke because I know a lot of people were making it when the draft was happening. But yeah, this was just a really altogether, I think, important win, an important game to stay healthy and to kind of capture the momentum going into Chicago next week. If we can escape Chicago with at least healthy, if not, a win, because I think we definitely can beat Chicago in Chicago. Just make Mitchell Trubisky actually play quarterback and make Kirk Cousins not play quarterback. I think we have a pretty good chance at it. Just a quick little overview of how the rest of the NFC North did today. Green Bay won again. Denver fumbled twice, I guess. That made a big difference. Denver is not a very good team, I'm sorry to say. Detroit beat Philadelphia by 3 points. I also hear that Philadelphia should have won that game. There was some sort of skill position player issue for Philadelphia. Um, what the tweets I saw were Carson Wentz has thrown 2 game-winning touchdowns in the last 2 weeks and lost both games. So don't know what that is. And Chicago plays on Monday night against Washington. So it's likely that the Vikings will be tied for third by the end of this week because I don't see Washington beating Chicago. Are we threatened by the Lions? I'm not really impressed by them so far. Always, unfortunately. I'm not super impressed with them either as far as their actual playing goes, but they find ways to win games. Matthew Stafford is an artist of, like, winning when they're not winning when he's not supposed to. I don't think the Lions are going to threaten for the division title necessarily, but I think they'll be good enough that every game against them in the division is going to be tough. So you have to be like they're always a threat because and that's the problem with the NFC North being so strong is like there's no game that is a gimme for any team. It's also the good thing about the NFC North because it's a really entertaining division to watch.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun season. I'll put it that way because Lions are starting off better than anybody thought they would. So I don't know. I'm not really convinced that they're the legit yet, but you never know. You know, I think they're definitely improving. They're on the way up. And I think Green Bay has. I don't want to say they've gotten lucky, but pretty much. I mean, I don't think they'll continue
luck?
winning like that.
Is it luck when the will of the officials bends to you?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I don't know. I have my conspiracies about Green Bay, and I won't get into that now. But
Roger Goodell was in the house on week 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's tough to complain about, but like, it's always tough to beat Green Bay in Green Bay because you have to beat Green Bay and whatever rule set the officials decide to play with that night.
Oh yeah, you kind of saw it today too, which was it's just disgusting, honestly. But it honestly it makes for the Vikings, it makes the divisional games that much more important. You got to beat those teams when you face them head to head.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's all that I have for now. I'll let everybody go and watch Teddy Bridgewater play for the New Orleans Saints. Everybody cheer for Teddy Bridgewater, but cheer for the Saints to lose still.
Exactly.
All right, this has been About the Labor. We'll be back hopefully for midweek this time. We'll try to make it work this time. Hopefully dogs don't get sick and moving doesn't happen anymore. So, on to Chicago. Skol.
Alrighty. Peace.